Uh, Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. So the first thing is, shout out to Ashley for DJing today. I am in the mountains in Kauai, and my internet is spotty, so I may be in and out. But Ashley is on the selections. Appreciated the range, my friend. I needed that energy.
I found an 80s workout playlist, I think this morning or something. I was like, I just need to like that's what I felt like I needed. And I just like Madonna was like Madonna Holiday, like did it for me. I was like,
Yeah. When I heard Janet, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, happy Thursday. So I guess the fun backstory for Brittany and Kendra, and for anyone else who ends up seeing this, is it's just been a week for both Ashley and I. There's been some tenderness, and and so that's a lot of the knowing glances and sighs of just like really feeling this grand adventure of life this week. It's just a lot going on, so
yeah.
But the one thought that I did have as we were coming into the session, and that song which we sort of used as the cue, it's called Peace by Bill Evans, which is why it sounds so dreamy and why it's so calming. But it's our nice little tune to bring us in. But I think as I was centering in that moment, I was like, there will be tomorrow until there isn't. And I'm here today. And I think despite everything, despite all of the stuff in the air, despite, whatever it is I'm feeling this week, whatever's going on, it's like, this is another moment that I get to experience and that I get to have. And so I think maybe I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to be alive. I'm very grateful to be here. I'm grateful for you, Ashley. Kendra, I'm grateful for you. Brittany, I'm grateful for you. There is so much to be grateful for. And I know sometimes it gets very noisy in my head, and you can lose sight of it. So, very grateful to be here, back in the space. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, it's been a big week. You experienced one of the lower moments that I've had for a while. I think I had acupuncture yesterday. I'll start here. And it was right after I saw you, and I love my acupuncturist. She's kind of therapist as well, and she just has like the perfect things to say at the perfect moment. And I was kind of going through some of the stuff that I've been feeling, and she was like, you know what, we're at this like pinnacle, like top of the most intense part of this whole situation. Like we kind of knew that it was going to get a little weird and intense around this time, but now we're like in it and we're living it. So we're like in this big experience. And I think that's like something to hold, and we'll get through it. Like we'll get through this thing. It's not going to be this overwhelming forever. So that was helpful. And it's helped me kind of ground today while also still holding the deep sadness and grief and anger and frustration that I'm still feeling, that I think we all still feel, for any number of reasons right now. And I think it's really intense because, and this is coming from my own personal experience of why this feels intense, but when people closest to us, when it just feels like there's a fight there as well, like when we can't count on the people that we trusted to kind of see us into being the people that we are now, when we lose stability in the place that we live, and then we also lose stability with some of the people that are supposed to be the most stable for us, it takes your breath away. It's really, it's a lot. And I think that I've definitely ridden, as I'm sure we all have, the last however many months, 7 months, 8 months, how long have we been in this?
I mean, March 13th, if that's the unofficial day when everyone was like,
yeah.
oh, there's a pandemic on outside. That's happening. Yeah, you know, we're 7 months from there.
Yeah. And I feel like in these last 7 months, I've experienced just like, it feels like heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. And again, a lot of that is with family stuff that I'm dealing with, and just like doing some really deep excavating of like old core family beliefs that I was raised on, and that I now have to take a look at and be like, do I believe that thing? Does that sit true for me? It might not sit true for me. Let me go read a book about this thing real fast. Let me figure out what this is about. And I think what has made this moment feel so intense is I've done a lot of that over the last 7 months. And we've had the time to like sit down and read through a book and get some answers. That I'm just like at this part where things are like at their, you know, like, who's it going to be? What is it? What's going to happen? What is the world going to look like come? Well, it's not going to be November 3rd, but it will be in the however long after that. And really kind of trying to come to terms with the fact that like the heartbreak just kind of continues. And how do we be with that? How do we be with those feelings? Because, and we've talked about this before, it's easy to feel the flowery stuff. It's easy to feel the love and the happiness and the rainbows and the love and light and the unicorns. Like that stuff is cool. We can do that. But it's the polarity of that. It's the I want to fucking punch through a wall right now. Like I can't help myself sometimes at the moment. Like my body just starts to vibrate, and it's not like, this isn't a usual, I'm not used to processing anger. Like that's not my normal way that I like to move through the world. And that's also something that is an interesting thing to look at. Is like, if we, and I read I listened to an interesting book recently called Stealing Fire. Stephen Kotner and Jamie Wheel, the Flow Genome guys. Fascinating read. Listen, I highly recommend. But they were talking about there's some basically warning things that you should keep in mind when you're exploring like deep states of consciousness, like conscious shifting states, whatever that is. And one of them was something that I think, as a spiritual person or as somebody that, you know, likes to practice the happiness and the, you know, positive vibes and all of that, is you can't get lost in being a bliss junkie. Like that is a form of escapism. It feels good. Like feels good to be there. Feels like I'm sitting here meditating and I can pretend like the bad things aren't there. Um, so I think it's an interesting moment to just feel into what that is. Yeah.
The context that you framed, and that I think your acupuncturist helps set, incredibly helpful. I think to recognize the particular context and timing in which we sit, and the intensity around that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, again, let's remember, like, election season is never fun.
Right.
It's never like, oh, it's like, there's always more energy in the air because there's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of power at stake. There's a lot of, like, things of this material plane that are up for stake. So it's always a time. This particular election, this particular pandemic, this particular moment of sort of unimaginable division and anger. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. It's like, in terms of there not being a common thread or common fabric or shared reality, it seems sometimes it's all super intense. And so yeah. I think that the biggest thing, and what immediately calmed me in hearing that and thinking about that context, is, okay, this makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay, be very gentle. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, like, hold yourself carefully. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to take a little extra time, and it's okay to take a little extra grace for yourself. Mm-hmm. And a little extra space if you need it, to be like, hey, feeling a lot of things. Yeah. Because it's not, it is a Thursday, but it's also a Thursday in mid-October in an election year in which very serious questions and matters of life and death for hundreds of millions of people in this country that we live in, being this geographic space, but also around the world. Like, the world we're in a precipice moment. And so everything is turned up right now. Like, mm-hmm. That's just a magnifying glass through which everything is being intensified. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a sunlight through a magnifying glass. Like, everything that you're feeling, everything that you're going through, everything that's happening within your family, with your partner, all of that, we're all dealing with this shared context of, however we want to attribute it and however we got here, like, things are not great. Like, no one's pleased. No one's like, yeah, no, we're
this feels like, normal. This feels healthy. Yeah.
Like, this is supremely sideways. Like, it's and so I think in that, it's like, okay, everyone's dealing with this.
Yeah.
And again, as we talked about last week, like, the importance of taking care of ourselves, the importance of, and again, beyond the, oh, I'm going to go on a spa retreat, or I'm going to go here, but it's like, what do I need to be doing? Yeah. Like, I realized this week, talking about flow and talking about the flow state, like, I need to always set up the conditions to be able to practice my practice. Mm-hmm. And again, the broad circumstance of what is your practice, what is that thing? Mm-hmm. But I think the realization of not, like, once you find a practice, once you find something where you're like, oh, I can touch base with myself, I can go to that place, I can re-energize, I can reaffirm, I can tap in. Once you are lucky enough to identify what that thing is, like, keep your tools at hand. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of substitutes for what that feeling is. But I think that's for me, this realization of everything that we have learned and every tool that we have at our disposal now, we need to have the full utility belt. We need to have the crossbody straps. We need to have the full gear.
Yeah.
Because no matter how resilient you think you are,
yeah,
and no matter how, no matter how much you practice and no matter how much time you spend reading and meditating and all of that, like eventually you will get hit because you're a human being. And in order to grow to the next level and to wherever you're supposed to be, it's going to take some moments of, I don't understand, nothing that I know and nothing that I have is working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to feel really lost. And like, it might be I got off at the wrong exit on the highway lost, or ranging to like, I'm Sandra Bullock in Gravity and I have no tether and I'm floating through space type lost. And like, it will happen. It's just the reality of life.
Yeah.
So I think that was, the context matters. Like when we are matters. Like what this moment is matters.
Yeah. Yeah. So in my exploration of trying to figure out like how to hold myself with these feelings, she was mentioned in the book Stealing Fire, and I made a note to go back and look her up. But Brene Brown, who is just like the warmest cuddle of a human to watch. Her TED Talk, like I watched it this morning. I rewatched her TED Talk this morning. Just a lovely human. She's talking about vulnerability, and this is one of the it's one of the things that they bring up in the book about vulnerability is strength. Strength is vulnerability. And I think that's a really hard thing to feel and practice and live. But I did make some notes that I want to share. Just some of her points that felt helpful to hold right now. So vulnerability is the core of shame and fear and our struggle for worthiness, which we did our whole thing on shame. We've dug into this stuff. Like there's a lot of shame stuff that is being kicked to the surface right now, a lot of fear stuff, a lot of unworthiness stuff, but is the birthplace of joy, creativity, belonging, and love. So it's that polarity of you can't really hold the joy and the love and the creativity without also living in the reality of fear and shame and unworthiness. We numb our vulnerability. So she gives 3 points of when this happens, or maybe more than that. I think it's 3. So the world we live in is a vulnerable world. We numb it though, and we're the most in debt, the most obese, the most addicted and medicated. So because we don't want to feel our feelings, we're doing all these things to just try to mask. And unfortunately, I think that all this stuff is being kicked up so much, we don't have any of those creature comforts of being able, I'm sure people are still shopping and eating and medicating and fucking and all the things that we do to try to make ourselves feel better. But you cannot selectively numb emotion. Without numbing our emotions, we numb everything. So when we numb the bad stuff, we're also numbing the good stuff. And we look for joy and meaning when we feel vulnerable. So we look for joy and meaning in anything that we can, Instagram, work, there's healthy and non-healthy things that we look for meaning in. And then we feel vulnerable, and then the cycle just continues. So what happens when we numb, why we numb, we make everything that is uncertain certain. And she brought up religion has gone from belief and faith and mystery to certainty. I'm right, you're wrong, shut up. And I think this is kind of the point that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, is like people are getting lost in these crazy things that, you know, the conspiracy theories and like all of these different things. People are trying to find meaning because there is so much uncertainty, because we don't want to have to look at our vulnerability. She brought up politics. It's a way to, there's no discourse. It's a way to discharge pain and discomfort. We perfect, and then we pretend that what we do doesn't have an effect on people. So I took to my journal earlier this week to write a poison pen letter basically to my father, just because it felt like a place that I could actually get out all of my frustrations, that I was actually going to be heard and seen. And the thing that I kept coming up against that was making me so frustrated and so angry, and I think this is, you know, I think we all kind of feel this way, is about certain people for sure. You'd rather be right than feel compassion. Like that was the first thing that I kept feeling, was like, you'd rather be right in this than have any kind of compassion. But then I sat with it, and after watching this Brene Brown thing, I realized you'd rather be right than feel vulnerable. And that is like, I think that's something, at least something that I'm feeling right now towards, you know, and it's an opportunity I'm feeling in myself to look at that in myself. Like, where do I have to be right that I'm not being vulnerable? But also, you know, I'm flipping it around and I'm looking at some other people as well and saying,
I mean, you know, I think it has to go both ways, you know, because again, we have to be constantly assessing ourselves and how we're acting, but also how the people that we're in relationship with are acting. And this idea that all relationships, you know, achieve a level of intimacy or closeness and, you know, and keep that status and that position forever and in static is not realistic. Like there are ebbs and flows. And I think, again, we would be doing ourselves a disservice, and we'd be doing the people that we're in relationship with a disservice if we weren't doing that inventory and if we weren't asking these questions. As per usual, you and I are catching a similar wave. One of the things that I was thinking about today was just this idea of what am I defending? And it feels like a parallel track to what you brought up, but this idea of just like, well, what am I trying to hold on to? Like, what point am I trying to win? What like refuge in being right am I trying to find? Like, what is that thing that I am so desperately trying to build armor around, trying to build arguments that, you know, shoot arrows out? Like, what is that thing? And so I think it's the idea of like, to change is to be vulnerable, to be open to change, to accept the possibility that there is a position other than yours, that there is a place that you haven't gotten to yet, that there is something that you aren't yet. And then I think our fear of failure and our fear of scarcity ticks into, well, what if I don't measure up? Well, what if that is it's to talk about it is, I even feel it. But I think that idea of, what if I can't measure up to this thing that you want me to be? What if I am not enough to be? What if I can't be? And so I think the vulnerability of shortcoming, of mistakes, of not knowing, of not understanding, of not having done enough, you know, whatever it is, it's it's hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
really, it's a hard thing to embrace, but because it feels so scary. And because
Mm-hmm.
again, we have so few models for it. I'm dealing with stuff with my mom, and her apologies are, well, let me explain to you why I did that, which is not an apology. That's a justification. Well, let me explain to you what I was feeling when I said that. It's like, I'm glad to know that in a different context. And that's, you should take note of that so you can regulate yourself, but one doesn't follow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's hard because no one wants to hurt people that they love. Like, unless you are, a classified individual who has relational issues,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm no professional, but like, none of us are actively seeking to harm the people that we love. None of us are actively seeking to inflict suffering on people that we love. But when we get called out, when our behavior gets called to the mat, when there's a situation that doesn't go well, and then there's this question of, well, could I have done something differently? Am
Mm-hmm.
I the cause of this? And I think it's hard to take that responsibility. And again, I think it connects to what we said last week, is like, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So if we can accept that people have beliefs, ideologies, paths in life that they have taken that seem oppositional to ours and seem in direct conflict, being able to look and understand that beneath the operating mechanism, there's a human being there, and finding that root compassion and starting from that place. I think in that it's similar to ourselves. It's like, if we get into a moment where our behavior is not in accord with who we want to be, have the most compassion, maximize the
Mm-hmm.
compassion. Like, you're just trying your best. You are a human
Mm-hmm.
being in what feels like world collapse, trying your best. And again, like, you know your intention, only you know your motivation. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the through line, and that's the grounding point. But it, it's again, I think some of the hardest vulnerability is the vulnerability when we have to look at ourselves and say, oh, no, not so great. Oh, okay. I see. I did the, oh, yeah. Oh no, oh, that sucks to be here. So like, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but again, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. What's not okay is to build a fort around the thing and spend
Yep.
so much time building the fort that you're like, what's the thing in here that well, now I've got a really nice fort, so I should just continue because I'm in a fort. And then you're in a fort mentality. Then you've built up a wall, you've built up defenses, you've built up something that has placed someone who you want to be in relationship with on the other side of the thing. And it's like, if we don't want to be in a relationship with people, that's another matter. We need to extricate
Yeah.
ourselves. We need to do things. If we want to, we've got to do that in a way in which we make sure that, again, and it feels crazy, it's counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to de-escalate a conflict is to put down your weapons, to put down your shield. And yes, it opens you the risk that the person on the other side will be like, aha, now your face is exposed and I'm going to shoot you in your face. But it's the only, like, someone has to go first. And
Yeah.
we're not all equally equipped in every circumstance. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes one party is going to have more clarity than the other. Sometimes the most compassionate thing that you can do for someone that you love is allow them the opportunity to shoot you in the face.
Yeah.
Because again, if they do it, And if they truly want to be in a relationship with you, like they're not going to enjoy that. Like no one's having fun in these things. The Civil War wasn't fun. Like people fighting isn't fun. It's not
Brothers
a
taking
good
up arms
time.
against each
Oh,
other.
it's not a good time.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
you know, so again, like this, it's someone has to go first.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you are more committed and more capable or more willing, if you really want to be in a relationship, you got to go first. And like, yeah, I don't like saying it. This is not what I came here to say. I didn't want to do this.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, it's just, again, everything in its time. We're being very gentle with ourselves.
Doesn't have to
We're
be right
taking
now.
things slow.
None of this has to happen right now.
Nothing has to be immediate. But again, it's just like the only way that I can see clear to some of this conflict ending is if someone puts down their arms. Because otherwise we're just going to get caught up in the patterns. Someone's going to do something or say something. It's like, well, that's just like that thing that you always say. And then we're back to this.
Yeah.
I can't live that way. It's just too exhausting.
It's exhausting. It's maddening and it's exhausting.
Oh, that's not what I want.
Just want to look out at the ocean and just feel real peaceful inside.
For real. I just want to watch rainstorms pass over. I just want to look at green things, But the other piece of it is again, no matter where we are, the work continues.
Yeah.
Because the ultimate work and the only thing that we can really do is, that's the only thing that we have any sense of control over. Like you don't have control over your outer. You didn't have control into the body that you were born into the family that you were born into the nationality that you were born into. You don't have any say over how well your body's going to function, for how long, whether certain cells in your body will start turning against you and then they'll become cancer. Like you don't know. The only thing that we have any control over is the inner life. And so we've got to guard that and we've got to protect that and we've got to cultivate that. We've got to maintain that because no one will do it for us. There's no service that can do that. There's no inner gardener. There's no inner architect. Like that's you. Mm-hmm. And so it's, protect ourselves. Boundaries are necessary, like making sure that our energetic membranes are permeable enough to let in love, but to screen out everything else. Like that's about the only thing that I can see. Yeah. So that's what I'll be doing the next week.
I'll give one last piece of advice that my acupuncturist gave because it felt satisfying. She said escapist stuff is great right now, like silly movies, silly TV, like things that make you feel really like, it's okay to do some escapist stuff right now. We don't have to stay in the pain and in the fatigue and in the muck all the time.
Yep.
We're allowed to take some breaks.
Yep. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. One last thing that I'll share. I was reading it just as we were getting set up. Again, I recommend Your True Home by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's basically a daily meditation. Thich Nhat Hanh's one of my favorite thinkers that I've come across of late. Yeah, I've always saw his name and I always saw the quotes and always really beautiful. But again, I'm like, anyone in that MLK would nominate for the Nobel Peace Prize, like that's someone who I want to hear from. So this book is really great because it's a daily meditation. And every day, you can just tap in, and get a little word. We have no need of a separate self or a separate existence. In fact, Nothing can exist by itself. We must interbe with all things. Look at a flower. It cannot exist by itself. It can only interbe with the whole cosmos. And that is true for you too. Getting rid of the concept of self is the work of all meditators, because suffering is born from this concept. The line that just resonated for me in that, and I spoke to me in particular, was, look at a flower. It cannot exist by itself. It can only interbe with the whole cosmos. And I think just the concept for me of interbeing with the whole cosmos, this idea of, again, it's hard to keep an eye on it, but we're all the same. We're all from the same thing. Like, we're all trying to figure this out, and we need each other. Like, none of us, like, we could not have existed and gotten to this point without our parents. For all the great things they did and all the whack things that they did, like, we wouldn't be who we are today. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Again, it's the same for anyone else that we've had come into our life. It's the same for any experience. Like, it's staying rooted in just remembering that, because again, when it feels like, yes, you are a unique snowflake. Yes, you are one of a kind. Yes, nobody truly understands you but you. No one truly gets all the things nobody knows. This is all true. Never going to happen. Do not lament the thing that cannot be. Like, the only way that you can get unconditional love and full acceptance of self is to give it to yourself. And so no one can take away what you can give to yourself. Nobody can take that from you. And so, yeah, we're all beautiful star children. Just do your best. Just do your best. That's all there is. I don't know, dog.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But, yeah. Very grateful for this Thursday. Very, very
so grateful. I feel my heart definitely feels, my heart feels a little lighter.
Me too. And again, it's just like, remember, it's Thursday, October 15th, 2020. We're 7 months into a pandemic. There's been riots in American cities well on and off over the last 6 months, 5 months, too long. Like, American citizens are fighting in the streets and sometimes killing each other over sectarian conflicts. Like, there's a lot going on. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to do the things that bring us joy, do those things that remind us of who we actually are. And as much as possible, extend that compassion that we extend to ourselves out into the world. That's what I got this week.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Our friends, Brittany, Kendra, any thoughts, any hearts, any feels? As always, no pressure, but it's been nice knowing that you guys were just there as like a support net. So appreciate you both. Openness and love. Yep. Right on cue, it just started raining torrentially. Like, as that message came in, it's been raining on and off all day, but it just
nice.
Turned up.
Nice.
Every storm passes.
Yep.
Awesome.
shall we move just a little bit?
Yep, I'll be right back. I'm just
Okay.
gonna go stand in this rainstorm for a second.
Please soak in that rainstorm for us.
Woo! It is not. It's nice. It's pleasant.
I feel like, yeah, just some Kauai rainstorm is wash it all away.
Necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, Ashley, since you're DJing today, I'm gonna join in on this movement.
Yes.
Tell you what,
yes.
feels like that kind of day.
I think that sounds amazing.
Oh.
All right. If you guys, you can type it in the chat room if you want to. Let me know how your body is feeling today. I don't have a game plan for what we're gonna do. So if you have body parts that feel